Why, hello and welcome everybody. Also, good morning. So if you guys are watching this video, I'm sure you saw that Path of Exile or GG just dropped the gigantic 0.3 update for POE2. There's like so much shit to go over. We're not going to cover all of it right now. Instead, what I wanted to do, with the exception of show you our bingo card, we had a bingo right through here, is I wanted to go ahead and inform you guys of what I think I'm going to be playing. Of course, everything is kind of like speculation. We don't always necessarily need Path of Building to decide what build we're going to play. Oftentimes, I myself find an interaction that looks cool, and then I just play it, and then we use POB to refine it, right? The numbers don't always dictate the build for me. You guys know I play ZDP SRF, right? So, with that being said, I want to go ahead and show this video right here really fast. So, I think it's here? Right here. So all you have to really see here is you'll notice they have like this glacial lance. This is actually, I believe this is empowered glacial lance. You can see they consume a frenzy charge, I think, whenever they throw it. This right here is basically like Lightning Spear's little brother. It pretty much got completely overshadowed. Nothing really too special about that skill specifically, but I basically want to play something on the theme of cold damage. And the reason why is I was a big fan of Huntress on launch. More specifically, I liked everything about Huntress, right? The parry mechanic was definitely flawed. They buffed parry, making it feel a lot better. And basically now you can parry pretty much everything other than very specific boss attacks. With that being said, here are the two things I want to start with. Now, the first one, since we're on the theme of Huntress, is there's a skill called Elemental Sundering. Now, I always personally wanted to use Elemental Sundering, but it didn't really work out very well on the previous iteration of POE2, and that's because applying ailments was a pain in the ass, and they still, on a boss fight are going to be difficult, but they're now making it so, essentially, if you're going to consume an ailment for like a big hit, you are rewarded much more. So if you look at this, it says Elemental Sundering, Pulse can now consume, and just to explain how it works, you like throw your spear on the floor and it does like a kind of like a big shockwave. Shockwave doesn't do any damage though. What it does is it can consume ailments on targets to trigger effects. So, the explosion now specifically the cold explosion deals 40% more damage, and if it's a boss, it's 100% more damage. You ask yourself, okay, but like, what is Elemental Sundering and why are you consuming your freeze? Because consuming your freeze is kind of dumb when you could be DPSing, right? So, for some numbers here, Hammer of the Gods has 1500% base damage, right? That's the big skill, right? You see the warriors, they drop the circle and the hammer comes down. Elemental Sundering has a 1021% attack damage hit. But again, this has to consume the freeze. If it doesn't consume the freeze, it is not going to do that. So you place it on the floor and it kind of does the AoE. It will consume the freeze, but now on a boss, it does 100% more damage compared to its previous 1000%, which I think is really sick. Comboing that with like parry, for example, I know people kind of meme on parry. I really liked it. I just didn't like that you couldn't tell what was parryable and what wasn't, and then the fact that like you can just get one shot was bad. They added a new passive now called Deflection. I'm not sure if you guys went through and read it, but Deflection. So Deflection is basically, let's see if it shows it here. They have like the... Okay, so basically Deflection is a mechanic that can roll now specifically with evasion, and it makes it so a percentage of your evasion rating is added as deflection up to 100%. It's kind of like spell suppression, but it works on everything. So attacks, spells, ground targeted AoEs. So this was basically designed for evasion-based builds to not just get one shot in the end game. And I think you can get up to like 40% damage mitigation from your deflection specifically. So very, very nice. So you get actually like some form of buffer there, which I think is going to combo really well. Playing something like a cold ailment in general, I think is a safe pick. They actually even stated it's easier to freeze targets now in the live stream. I don't know exactly what they meant by that, but that's kind of an idea of what I wanted to play. More information on that later. Now, another thing I thought that was interesting is going to be this keystone, and this is called the hollow palm technique. You can see it here. The hollow palm technique basically makes it so when you're playing like a monk, you can use your quarterstaff skills while you're unarmed. And you know, you'd ask yourself, well, why would you want to be unarmed? Honestly, just looking at it here, this is not really that impressive. You get like 1% more attack speed per 25 evasion rating on equipped armor. Note that this specifically says armor items, not your actual evasion value. The thing is, if you have like a top tier body armor, like a very top tier body armor, we're talking about like very end game, you're going to get like, I don't know, let's say 90 to 100% more attack speed on a pure evasion. If it's a hybrid like evasion intelligence, it's obviously going to be much less. But then you have to ask yourself, like, you're hitting 2 times as fast, which means you're going to go so you're going to go out of mana 2 times as fast. For what benefit exactly? And the benefit, honestly, to me, would be 2 situations here. So number 1, you get crit chance per energy shield on equipped armor, which honestly could be pretty good. I don't know how high we can realistically get our base crit. Probably pretty high with this, to be completely fair, because the thing is, you should be able to scale this crit chance easily with crit nodes on the tree, crit damage nodes, etc., and you have a big base to scale off of. The unarmed base crit chance is 5%, and we know this because if you look here at unarmed, you can see now that we have unarmed base crit of 5%, and then this right here should feed directly into the base crit, I imagine, which then scales even more off of your actual increased crit. They do also have a new unique item that I will just kind of pull over here, and it is the Thunder Fist utility wraps that they teased. That actually grants you Crackling Palm. You get essentially like a lot of flat lightning to your unarmed, along with the melee attack crit. I believe that the main benefit of this is the Crackling Palm, but of course I'm not really sure. And the last thing I want to take notice of is this here, because this to me is probably the most important thing, which is physical damage based on their skill level. So this implies to me that as your skill gem levels up, you get additional flat fizz, maybe percent fizz. I'm going to assume flat physical damage based on that skills level. Now, this has some issues in itself, and I'll explain the issues. Number 1, if your skill is not using conversion mechanics, then you're a pure physical build, and there's not as much support for pure physical skills. To be fair, specifically monk physical skills, so all the wind skills, have received buffs this patch because they want to bring that archetype kind of in. So that's kind of what, those are like a few things to really note. Somewhere I can kind of see an advantage here, though, would be 2 places, maybe even 3 places. Number 1, if you're doing like a solo self-bound starter, you can completely avoid a weapon. Now, the problem is, I don't know if this is actually going to be better than just like buying a quarterstaff out of the vendor, throwing an alchemy orb on it, getting 1 damage modifier, whether it's like, you know, percent physical, a high flat physical, flat lightning, flat cold, flat fire, right? Really not sure on this specifically, but to me, that's kind of where it would make sense, right? You're starting a fresh character, you have no gear, you know, you kind of just, you lean on your defenses because you don't have a lot of currency in the campaign, and then essentially you just try to update your skill as much as possible, and then you kind of let this line right here do the heavy lifting. Some of the other things, though, that are nice is if I were to open the POB here, when I played Monk on, I think it was at season 1, or I guess 0.1, sorry, this cluster right here is actually, I think, the only unarmed cluster on the tree. And they may add more, to be fair. I didn't read everything from the patch notes, but this is such a nice cluster for quality of life. And the reason why is it has a stat that you don't really see anywhere on the tree, or at least you don't see it very often. And that stat would be this, which is Way of the Wind, 50% increased maximum dash distance with unarmed attack skills. And when I was playing the Cold Shatter Monk that we played, I actually tried this out. So what I did is I had a weapon swap where I would allocate this and then I would swap, but it felt really clunky because like you're weapon swapping to use a movement skill only to have to weapon swap back. And even though it's seamless, like you only click 1 button because you click the skill, your character, you know, unarmed swaps, and then you get back in combat and then you re-swap to do the ice strike. It was clunky, right? The animation was clunky. Now there is no more weapon swap animation. It is seamless, so it goes directly through, and that doesn't necessarily mean anything for this build, but it does mean that other monks I can see taking this node just to get that extra speed when they are mapping to go from like A to B. So Anyway, that's pretty much what I wanted to share. I wanted to share my findings with you guys about that. I'm super stoked for this patch. It looks really awesome. I'll have another video coming on my 2 favorite changes, I think, coming in this patch specifically. But that is pretty much going to be it for me for the day. No Righteous Fire yet. We are going to have to be patient until that actually drops. But, you know, that's all we got for the day. So I'm going to catch you guys out later. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget, you can catch me streaming live every day at twitch.tv/Pohx. Take care. See you guys all later.